Hi guys, Zach here from VORTEX Martial Arts and Fitness, and we're here today on our 5th Beginner's iChucks lesson, Learn Nunchucks Online. Guys, this is the second part of a 2-part lesson. If you haven't watched the first part yet, hit the little box up the top there and have a little watch of that before you continue. If you have already watched that first part, then let's get on with the rest of the lesson. So now we've mastered the normal wrist roll, we're going to go in to try the reverse wrist roll. So that whilst the normal wrist roll is just holding it from the normal position into that wrist roll, the reverse wrist roll is holding it in that reverse grip and swinging it back round the other way, back in to our normal grip. So our wrist roll one way into that reverse grip, and then wrist roll the other way into that standard grip. So the reverse wrist roll can be learned in much of a similar way as the standard wrist roll. But what we want to start with, instead of holding it in this normal position, we want to hold it in the reverse position with the chuck pointing down and holding it in that reverse position. So instead of holding it in this position, we're going to come across to the other chuck and hold it in that pointed down position. And what we want to do from here, guys, is we just want to swing the chuck like this. Get that motion feeling good. And once we feel like we can, we're going to get a big swing over and stall it like we did with the other one on the back of our hand. So we rock the chuck, stall it on the back of our wrist or the back of our hand. So we're holding it, stalling it, holding it down, spinning it round, and stalling it. Remember guys, it's not the same as that original wrist roll because we're not holding it in that neutral grip anymore. We're holding it in that reverse grip now with the chuck pointing down. Up, round, and stall it on your wrist or the back of your hand. Some of you might be thinking that my chucks sit quite close to the back of my hand on this one. Again, that's just because of my chain length. Don't worry if your chain's longer or you've got a longer rope. When you stall it on the back of your hand or the back of your wrist, just stall it wherever the chuck sits. All chucks are different, all hands are different, all techniques are different. So just get used to where it sits nicely for you and your chucks. So now we've mastered that reverse grip into the stall, we're going to let the chuck go and perform that reverse wrist roll. So now we're comfortable with that stall, we're going to let the chuck go, open our grip, and catch it back in to that normal grip. So we can go one way into that reverse grip and the other way back into normal grip. So from that reverse grip, guys, and we've come up to that stall, all we're doing is a good flip, boom. We're trying to flip it as fast as we can around our wrist. Once we flip it nice and good and release at the same time, we can get that reverse wrist roll, okay? So once we get that going and we really flip it round, it's going to come up over. We're going to release that grip, let the chuck fall in between our thumb and first finger, close that grip off and let that chuck come round. The secret to learning wrist rolls is to practice little and often. It's gonna start annoying you with these wrist rolls because you will drop it quite a lot. Don't panic, okay? If you get annoyed with this technique, just rest, take some time out, practice the other techniques, practice some different techniques, and then come back to it later. So by now you should have mastered both wrist rolls, the forward wrist roll and the reverse wrist roll. We're going to put them together now with that little hand stool and be able to just transition between one and the other continuously. So now we'll go into the wrist rolls, stall, wrist roll, stall, wrist roll. What we want to be looking at now is, because we've got those wrist rolls in both directions pretty much sussed, is we're just adding this other hand in for a bit to be a bit flashy, to make it look cool and sharp. So we're going to go from that normal wrist roll in that normal grip, we're just going to wrist roll round and catch. From that catch, we're going to throw the chuck down into that reverse wrist roll and catch. So these hand redirects can be used in many ways, and they can change the nunchuck spinning from plane to plane. Change direction really cool, and they can bring that other hand in for an extra bit of flair. I'll show you a quick demonstration of something we cover in our intermediate and more advanced courses to give you an idea of what can actually be achieved by using that hand redirect. So we're just going to take it nice and easy on this trick, guys, and we're going to go through the stages and make sure we get each stage as we've gone through the lesson. Make sure we get each stage really good before we move on. So just practice it one side and then the other side. So we're going to practice it just a normal wrist roll into that stool until we get that really fluid. Once we get that really fluid, we're going to come up to that grab, throw it back down into that reverse wrist roll until we get the motions as fluid as we possibly can. So once we get really fluid with that motion and that catch, we can just lighten up the catch and just use a little push instead. So we're coming round, push, over, push, and keep those motions going. So we're round, we're just letting the chuck do what it does and keeping those rotations backwards and forwards. Again.